Hello, and welcome to the Running Hook Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Burr, and I just wanted to let you know beforehand that this podcast was very long, so Zach and I cut it into 2 parts. And now, if you don't like cussing, you are not going to like this podcast. So please, if you don't like cursing, again, I will remind you, don't listen to this podcast. Part 1 is coming out today on Thursday the 4th. Part 2 will be out on Tuesday, June 9th. Thank you for listening. Hope you enjoy.
We always called each other Goodfellas. Like you'd say to somebody, you're gonna like this guy, he's all right. He's a good fella, he's one of us. You understand? We were good fellas, wise guys.
Hello, and welcome to the Running Hook Podcast, hosted by Alex Burr, a member of the Running Hook Podcast Network. Welcome back to another edition of the Running Hook Podcast. I am joined again by repeat guest, Zach Griffith. Welcome, Zach.
Thanks for having me back. Good to be back.
And I think it's safe to say we're both incredibly excited to do this topic.
Oh, yeah. One of my favorite movies. Probably my favorite movie of all time, if I'm being honest.
The title will probably give it away, but we're talking about Goodfellas today. And just fair warning, if you don't like cursing, this is definitely not the podcast for you. You can't talk about this movie and not
log off right now.
It's not possible. And so with that in mind, we're going to start the cursing now. And Zach, what a fucking movie.
Let me tell you, this movie means a lot to me. I mean, not a lot of movies I can tell you what year I first saw them, but I first saw this in 2010. I was in 7th grade. It was one of those movies. My dad always had it on DVD in his where he kept all his movies. And I was wasn't allowed to go in there because a lot of R-rated movies, some questionable PG-13 movies, wasn't allowed in there. And then one day I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm not even going to ask him. I'm just going to pull it out of here and watch it. And I've probably seen it 30 times since. It's unbelievable movie.
I have not watched it 30 times since. I saw it probably around let's just call it 2012. Let's just say that, because that's probably a more accurate assessment of when I saw it. It would have been in either 8th grade or 9th grade. And then I watched it probably a couple more times since. But I didn't really appreciate it till the last 2 times I watched it, which was when it came back to Netflix and then the time we watched it for this podcast. Those just were incredible. It knocked my socks off, right? Because I remember I'm like, oh yeah, Goodfellas. I would just say I love the movie, right? But then I didn't realize how much I was my jaw was up on the floor the time I rewatched it. Because I remember everybody remembers the first time you watch it, right? You remember Tommy what do you think, I'm a clown? You think I use you? You know, that seems unforgettable. You know, you don't forget when they do the Lufthansa heist and Henry's in the shower going, Jimmy, on the shower wall. Those, you just don't forget those, but this movie's a lot more subtle than that, right? This movie's incredibly subtle. You have to pay attention. You can't not pay attention to watch this movie, because if you put your head down for a second, you'll be like, wait, why are they killing Samuel L. Jackson? Right? That'll just slip your mind. But then you watch the movie, and Henry explains everything. We'll talk about the narration style in a second, because this is one of the few movies with narration that I actually like. Right? I don't like that in Wolf of Wall Street. You don't see a whole lot of narration movies that are like, oh God, you're explaining this to me.
Right.
And it's telling that Tarantino has only done it once, and that was in Glorious Bastards, and he did it very sparingly.
Yep.
Right? I mean, when Tarantino does it, he does it sparingly, but Scorsese has been able to make whole movies around it. And so I think we should go into a plot synopsis in case somehow you haven't seen Goodfellas. And so the plot of Goodfellas is pretty simple. You're just following the life of Henry Hill, half Italian, he's half Irish, right?
It's over a 25-year period. Yeah, half Irish. That's why he can't get in to the mob. He can't be a made guy because he's got Irish blood.
And so you just follow his life. It's really like an arc, right? Like, it's not a hero because you can't describe Henry Hill as a hero, but you kind of follow his arc as like a person with morals, watching his morals kind of slowly eradicate, his life in the mob, and just watching that. And the whole story is like and this is based off a true story. Like most of this stuff happened. I think all of it happened actually. Like Billy Batts is a real person.
Yeah.
They changed.
Conway's name was not Conway. It was
it's Burke.
Jimmy Burke, yeah. But he was still known as Jimmy the Gent.
Mm-hmm.
I think Tommy DeVito was actually Tommy DeSimone, I think.
Yes, that's correct.
And he went missing as well.
And
MIA.
Paulie Cicero, the boss, I don't think was Cicero. I believe he was a real person too. That wasn't like all the people were real. I think most of them were alive at that point, so they couldn't use their names. But like Billy Batts was dead. DeSimone wasn't technically dead, but I mean, I think everyone just
he's gone. He's Jimmy Hoffa dead.
Right. And so you put two and two together. But the movie is like, this is one of the best retellings of a real story that you could come up with, wouldn't you say?
That's what Scorsese's great at. I mean, he can do this. He can make up a story. I mean, this and The Wolf of Wall Street are the ones that stick out to me based on a true story with movies by him. I mean, The Irishman to some degree, but Irishman doesn't compare to this or Casino or Wolf of Wall Street. It just doesn't.
And the problem is, it's like they try to have like young De Niro, right? In The Irishman. I think we'll probably talk about The Irishman when we talk about our favorite Scorsese movies. But in The Irishman, my main issue was that I just couldn't help but see in like, old De Niro, right? Like even in Heat, like if you watch Heat, he was 95. He looks old in Heat.
Yeah.
And then you're trying to convince me that this guy is some kind of kid when he looks at best like he didn't meet the parents.
The worst was when he was kicking the guy on the sidewalk. There's like these weak ass kicks just kicking him. And you're just like, oh man, kind of cringy,
But this movie had you can't complain about any of this movie. It's impossible.
You really can't.
So we talked about our overall thoughts on the movie. I think now we got to jump to our favorite scenes. And we counted each of our favorite scenes beforehand. I have 15. Zach has 21. And so, Zach, let's start with your first scene.
Okay, so I didn't rank them. I just went in order as the movie went on. So the first one I had was Henry beating the jury as a kid.
That's a good one. I didn't have that one. That's
when he doesn't really beat the jury. He gets pinched, but he did beat the jury, but he still got arrested. Jimmy comes up to him after, puts his hand around him. He's like, you did good. You did good. You did the two most important things, which it's actually kind of one thing. Don't rat on your friends and always keep your mouth shut. And Henry's like, all right. Then they go through the doors. Everybody's there. Whole family's waiting for him. They're like, oh, you broke a jury. And then they all embrace him. Like, it's like a crowning moment. Like, he got off. It was his first acquittal.
And that was huge in, like, the part of the movie. Because then, like, he just became that much more confident. Which he was already not struggling for confidence, right? Or at least in his retelling. I'm sure he was a nervous kid. But, at that point in ostensibly what would have been Henry Hill's life when he was narrating the movie, he was like, we had it made. I was making more money. Like, and one of the scenes that I love that I didn't actually write down, but now that I think about it is a great scene, is when he comes back to his mom's house wearing the suit.
Mm-hmm.
And that scene is just like, everyone was jealous. Like, the way he paints it in his mind, right? Like, Henry the narrator is different than Henry the character in the movie, where he's
much different character.
Because he's kind of telling you what he thought about it now, right? He's like, everyone was jealous. I even got kids from the neighborhood to carry home my mom's groceries.
Yeah,
right.
It was out of respect.
Like, Henry the narrator is so arrogant. Like, he thinks even after everything that went down, he still like has an incredibly high opinion of himself, which is admirable. But like when he was a kid, he was just a kid, right?
Yeah.
Like I thought the opening scenes though were like really important to establishing the rest of the movie, because you didn't really get a whole lot of Tommy in the beginning, right? You got a whole lot of Jimmy, you got a whole lot of Paulie, and you see why Henry turned out the way he turned out. Which, I mean, the first like real shot of the movie was like 1970, right? Like that was the first real year. I guess when we go back through this, the main years tend to look at are like sometime in the 50s that they left ambiguous. And then he would have been about 27 in 1970, according to Henry Hill's actual life. So 1970 was the first year like this film actually kicks off. Around then, right? That's when he meets Karen. And I think that just is
a little bit of him in 1955 when he's a kid, but
right. That's the year.
The Henry we know, 1970.
Right, and that 1970, what a year for Henry Hill. But so we're going in sequential order. What do you have for your next scene?
The restaurant names. When Henry walks into the Bamboo Lounge and sees all the names. I don't know if you want to get into the names now, but
might as well.
Some classic names. We got Fat Andy. These are just the ones that I liked. Fat Andy, Frankie the Wop.
That was a good one. I laughed.
Freddie No Nose. Pete the Killer, who is clearly a hitman because he says, right. I took care of that thing for you. Clearly a murderer. Nicky Eyes with the glasses.
That was a good one.
Jimmy 2 times.
Because he says everything. I'm going to go get the papers. Get the papers.
Those are the ones that stick out to me. But that's just a good scene. I mean, you get... And some of those guys, you don't see him ever again. You see Frankie Carbone a lot after that.
Right.
But other guys, you don't really see him. So that's just a nice intro to the family and what you're going to be dealing with.
Right. And that scene is just like, I mean, I think that scene is just really establishes the comedy of the movie. This movie is incredibly funny. Like,
yeah.
Like, even in the tense moments, like, including a scene that we're going to have to talk about later, like one of the seminal moments of the film, it's just really funny. Like, Frankie the Wop.
Just a slur. A slur is his nickname.
And I mean, just all like, and those feel like real nicknames for people, right? They don't feel fake. No, I mean, calling someone the Killer.
They took care of that thing for you.
Just out in the open is incredible. And then Jimmy 2 times, just, oh my God.
Jimmy 2 times. Took care of that thing.
Get the papers. It just is like you laughed that whole scene, right? And it leads to I think the scene that you would have to have next, which is the seminal "You Think I'm a Clown" scene. Like,
yep, that is next. Funny how this is like some of the best acting, and supposedly all improv in this scene. That was Ray Liotta's genuine reaction. He didn't know what was going on. And
he looked horrified.
Yeah. And that shows you how scared these guys are of Tommy. They're his friends even. They're scared of him. That's how volatile he is, how violent he is. He's like the definition of a loose cannon, Tommy.
And we're going to talk about Ray Liotta later, but something that Ray Liotta does really well in this movie is he acts with his eyes, right? Mm-hmm. Like, he uses his eyes better than just about any other actor that I remember, right? Like, in this movie in particular, right? Because we're going to go through the whole movie, and we'll talk about that as we get along. But, like, late in the movie, when he's all, like, not sleeping and when he's on drugs, you can, like, see the stress in his eyes, right? Like, he looks worn down, and his eyes tell the story. It's hard to do that, I feel like. You don't see that from a whole lot of actors. But Liotta in the "You Think I'm Funny How" scene, like, he just is like you could see the genuine fear in his eyes, and then when he realizes that, when he's like, "You're just breaking my balls," like, when he does, like, you could see, like, the genuine relief in his eyes,
too. The fuck out of here.
I was just fucking with you. Like,
You really are a funny guy. But that scene just captures the atmosphere. Like, you can be so friendly at one time, then the next minute, very hostile. You don't know what's going to happen. So that's just mob life for you.
I think there's like a couple defining Tommy scenes in this movie because like Tommy is a side character and very much the side, but when he's on the screen, Joe Pesci played him so much larger than life.
Can't take your eyes off him.
You were scared of him. You were, just so much was just terrifying, right? Like you're right. You couldn't take your eyes off of him. He just was magnetic on the screen.
And he did it again in Casino 5 years later.
Mm-hmm.
Did it again.
He was the best part of Casino, bar none, to me. I thought
him and Sharon Stone kind of outdid Big De Niro in that one, but don't tell De Niro that.
I don't know. You think he's going to listen to this?
I don't know. He might be too busy getting CGI'd 10 years into the past.
Oh, unnecessary shot. Okay. So since you have them in sequential order and I do not, why don't you go with your next scene that you had?
Okay. The Sonny sit down with Polly. Sonny owns the Bamboo Lounge. He's kind of having some money problems. He's having problems with Tommy. Tommy's not paying the tab. Goes to Polly with Henry. Wants Polly to come in on the restaurant with him. And you just kind of see how laid back of a leader Polly is. And that eventually, if you give him some reasoning, he'll come in on it with you. And that's exactly what happened here. So Polly's a reasonable leader. He's a likable guy. He's very much the dad figure in this movie.
Well, and then the sequence following, right? When Henry is narrating and he goes, "Fuck you, pay me," like constantly,
yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Like, it's just, "Fuck you, pay me." Like, yeah, lightning got struck by lightning. Fuck you, pay me. Just like all that stuff, right? Like, and then the part where they burn down the thing when. Yeah,
that was my next scene.
So why don't you go ahead and talk about that?
Yeah, so they burn down the Bamboo Lounge because it goes out of business and they can still get the insurance money. So they burn it down. But in the car, this is the chemistry between Liotta and Pesci. Pesci just gets like a word in about this girl he's seeing. And Henry's just like, no, I'm not doing it. And then Pesci's like, what? What the fuck? Then he asks him for the double date. And Henry's like, I knew it. Fucking knew it. Because the chemistry's great.
It's because it's like a conversation you would have with your friends, right? You wouldn't do it immediately after you were going to burn down the Bamboo Lounge.
Yeah.
If your friend was going to invite you on a double date, right? And you were going to, like, you already knew that they were going to ask and they were like, so, you would just be like, no. No. And that scene, that whole sequence where he was like, where the place started catching on fire and they were so absorbed in the conversation.
Yeah.
Like, when
they missed the smoke. They didn't even see the smoke coming out of the building.
And they're like, and then Tommy said something to the effect of, "The fuck are you doing? The place is burning down."
You with your mouth.
And then, so I'm guessing we got to talk. What you have next is the date scene with Karen and Henry. Just that whole sequence.
The classic continuous shot into the club. You see the power Henry's got. Karen's just blown away. Hell of a sequence. Hell of a shot.
I ranked mine. That was at the top of mine, right? Like, that's by far the most iconic shot from this movie. Just like, the music is perfect. The music is perfect throughout this whole movie. Like, you can't deny that.
Classic Scorsese music.
And it just is like the shot, like the Andy Kissed Me music. He goes through the back of the restaurant, which is such a power move. He's handing people $100 bills, or I guess 20s back then, but still $20 back then. It's basically $100 now.
Yeah.
And he gets to the front of the restaurant, and he's like, he gets to sit right by the stage.
Yep. They just bring a table out for him.
Like,
guys send him some champagne.
Right. Just guys from the table next to him. Just was like, here's some champagne.
But he's in construction. Henry's in construction, so.
He's like, Karen's like, what do you do? I'm in construction.
I'm a union delegate.
That's like, she has to know that's a lie, right?
Well, he didn't look her in the eyes when he said construction, so she had to have known.
I mean, there's no way she couldn't have known. It was, oh God, that just whole sequence, right? And then the terrible stand-up comedy back then. Was that the best they could do? Take my wife, please.
I thought the kitchen line was pretty. What was it? That was okay. That was a good one.
He's like, I've tried taking her everywhere, but she always finds a way back home. Just like, thank goodness for the evolution of stand-up comedy, because that was rough.
King of the one-liners, my ass. I don't think so.
King of the one-liners, Benny Youngman. Just such terrible punchlines. And so, okay, I think we're gonna move on to your next scene that you had.
Okay, Henry beats up Bruce. Bruce from across the street. Never had a chance. As soon as Karen says, he started to touch me, he started to grab me, dude's fate was sealed. The way Henry just walks across the street. He gets Karen in the house so she doesn't see. She sees anyway, but he tries. Walks across the street, gun in his belt. And then Bruce, the ball's on Bruce. What's up, fucker? You want something? And just gets popped. I should have counted how many times he popped him in the face.
It was at least 5.
Yeah. Man, I thought it was at least 12. That dude is he's not smelling ever again. His nose is fucked.
I mean, we talked about Robert De Niro kicking in the Irishman. That part was just as bad. He clearly wasn't touching him, but
Don't shoot.
It just was like, and watching the kids in I don't know if it was a kid in the background because he looked young, right? Like, but I don't know.
Yeah, some of Bruce's friends.
Right. They just were so, like, watching the fear on their face.
Yeah.
That was, like, incredible to watch, too. Like, I just watched the kid in the blue shirt, like, on the side of the car. He wasn't coming. Nobody was coming to help Bruce.
No. Bruce was on his own.
Because it's a 3-on-1, but if you're getting beat up with a gun, then, you know.
If you're getting pistol whipped, it's basically even odds.
And I think at the end of the scene when Karen is narrating, which, by the way, Karen's narration parts are just hysterical.
Yeah, they are.
Bar none. When she's like, most of my best friends would be freaked out if their man handed them a gun. But I wasn't. I was turned on. I was like...
We gotta be honest, it turned me on.
We talked about how Henry's narration voice was arrogant. How would you describe Karen's narration voice, like her narration personality? Because
Karen's is a little reminiscent. She's reminiscing on some good times in her life, some bad times in her life, while Henry's just telling a story.
And okay, we're going to talk about this later as well. Actually, let's just talk about this now. Right, so you think that when they were filming this, right, and they were having them do the narration, do you think that they knew that Karen and Henry had split up in real life? You had to guess.
That's a good question.
Information on this, but because they point out in the credits, right, or right before that Henry and Karen had split up in 1989, and
yeah,
they so I was wondering, if they look back on the good times in the film because they were still together, maybe, and maybe push the picture. Since they would both had to have gone in witness protection, and I mean, they only would have been in witness protection for 10 years.
Yeah, I don't really think that could have factored in if they were together or not. I think Martin was just going to tell the story how it was or how he wanted to.
That's fair. It just is because Karen, reminiscent is definitely right. It definitely strikes she was super into this guy, super devoted. But we'll talk about other scenes later. I know that there's one that's going to come up between Karen and Henry, but it's watching the way that they talk to each other in this film is you could tell that the people in real life had affection for each other.
Oh yeah.
And so let's move on to your next scene because I like this way better. So let's move on to your next scene. What did you have next?
Oh, the whole wedding. I mean, come on now. First they do the Jewish thing. They do the Jewish wedding for Henry's in-laws, just so you know, for appearances. And then they have the big Italian wedding. Everybody's there. They're just getting, Peters and Pauls and Maries everywhere. Getting envelopes of money, just stacks of money. And then a great scene is when Karen and Henry are dancing, and Karen's like, well, what about the money? And Henry's like, no, nobody's taking that here. Nobody would dare. So you get that, again, the atmosphere. The family aspect of the mob is just really evident in this scene.
I think that this was one of the best, probably one of the top 3 Karen narration scenes. Because what you said, the Peters and the Pauls and Marias, she's like, all the women were named Maria and their daughters were named Maria too. It just is. It's so funny. And it's all these, Karen, my favorite thing about Karen's narration, right? Henry's is kind of more to the point, but also he exaggerates more. Mm-hmm. But Karen's is pretty accurate for the most part. And then she also points out just the little details that you wouldn't think of. It just was there's another scene after this, right? When she's introduced to all the wives and she's like, they were just spitting on their floors. I don't know why. And then she was just she's like, they were all ugly. They wore too much makeup. It was just stupid little things, right? But it kind of makes the movie in a way.
Yeah, I mean, they complement each other really well, Karen and Henry. Really well.
And so what did you have next after that scene?
Billy Bats. If only if he could have kept his mouth shut, he might still be with us. But Billy Bats.
Shown up to Henry's place that night. I mean, Billy Bats is still alive and thriving.
Just got out of jail, celebrating, having a couple drinks. Mentions the shine box to Tommy. Not what you want to do. Not the move, Billy.
And Billy Bats, real person. This was a very, very real person, by the way. You can look, Billy Bats has a Wikipedia page. That's how you know they were a real historical person. But I loved, Billy Bats just looked so arrogant, right? I mean, he should have been. He was a made man.
Yeah.
But he didn't expect to run into Tommy that night. That was just just the part where he's ribbing Tommy, and Tommy's like, you don't sound like you're messing around. And he's just like, I'm just busting your balls. And then he takes the shot, right? The way that they set up the line that I'm about to say, he takes the shot, right? He swallows it, takes a beat, and goes, now go get my fucking shine box. Right? And we didn't set this up, but Tommy used to have to go shine shoes, right? That was the implication, right? And
yeah. When he was a kid.
He walks into the bar and he's like, I'm not shining shoes no more, Billy. And so when he says that, right? You could just see, and Tommy just goes, you motherfucker! Come here! That passion.
Keep him here.
And then when he walks back in the bar, right? And you see Henry go over, right? It looks like Henry's going to try to hold him back. But then Jimmy sees what's going on. He sees him coming over, and he holds Billy back. And the whole Billy Bat sequence, all of it, is just incredible. Even, I'm going to pull up the Wikipedia page right now, because we're going to talk about some of the other scenes involved with this, but it is a documented fact that on their way to bury the body, right? He starts knocking on the roof of the car.
Starts knocking on it at Tommy's mom's house.
It's okay. This is let's talk about Tommy's mom real quick. Then I'm going to read the Wikipedia page for Billy Bats. I love the Tommy's mom scene, right?
That was actually my next scene. The scene at Tommy's mom's house.
It just was Tommy, you're home so late. And then they eat a full course meal. Was it 4 a.m?
She makes a meal at 3 or 4 in the morning for him. And then he has to borrow the knife, and it's like, what could you need a knife that big for at 4 a.m.?
We ran over a deer. We ran over a deer. Like, how the hell did his mom buy that?
Oh, okay, just bring it back. Clean it, bring it back.
And so,
meanwhile, you can hear Billy Bats knocking on the trunk.
Right. And then it's kind of funny on their way out there. They think they hit something. On their way to bury Billy Bats, they think they hit something, and you just heard the like in the back of the car just constantly. And then they go and they open the trunk, and Tommy just uses the knife and just ends his life right there. And just like the whole like burial scene, I thought it was funnier when they reburied him. Like when they had to go all the way back up. He's like,
that was funny. Yeah, that was a good one.
Henry looked so annoyed. Like
he's dying. He's dying. The scent, man, terrible.
I mean, he was decaying for 6 months.
Yeah, and then when he's washing his car out, he's like, "I hit a skunk, Karen. I hit a skunk."
It just was like the way he delivers lines, the way that Ray Liotta delivers the lines is just amazing to me. That's one of my favorite portions of the whole movie. Just a skunk, Karen.
Again, Ray Liotta. We'll talk about it later, I bet, but didn't get shit for this movie. Nothing.
Nominated for nothing.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. What did you have next? I'm curious.
Spider scene.
Mm-hmm.
Spider. So Spider, there's a lot of Sopranos ties to this movie. Sopranos is my favorite show ever. This might be my favorite movie ever. Yeah, well, the guy that plays Spider, his name is Michael Imperioli, and he has a huge role in The Sopranos. He plays Chris, but he plays Spider in this movie. Spider, he's like, I don't know what happened. I don't even remember. He gets like the order wrong or something.
So, Tommy's like ordering drinks, right? Like he's kind of like, I don't know what his job is, right? Like he's just kind of there. He's serving them while they gamble, and he misses Tommy's order, right? And then Tommy is like, he's wanting to be the Oklahoma Kid, trying to make him dance, and he shoots Spider in the foot, and then I think a scene passes, right? But then they come back, and then Spider tells Tommy to go fuck himself, right? He's like, go fuck yourself, Tommy. And Jimmy's like all like, ooh, like
everybody's like, laughing.
Mm-hmm. He's like
talking up Spider.
He puts $100 on the table. He's like, Spider, this is for you for standing up for yourself. And then Tommy takes it as a real stab to his honor and just guns him down in his prime.
The thing I had written down when he got shot in the foot was they're helping him out. They're helping him out to get to the hospital. And Tommy yells, "Don't make a big thing out of it." He's like, he shot him in the foot.
Like they're gonna
don't make a big thing out of it. You shot him in the fucking foot.
And just like, I think one of the best lines comes after they bury. After he kills Spider, and Jimmy's like, "You're gonna go fucking bury him." He's like, "You think I never dug up a hole before?"
Is it the first hole I dug? I'll take the fucking hole.
It just is like, I think that scene is like the turning point for Tommy, right? Like, I think there's a bunch of turning points for characters. Like when Henry gets out of prison, I think that's a turning point. After the Lufthansa heist, I think that's a turning point for Jimmy. Like you can kind of see when all these characters start to lose it. I think that like this is when, or I guess you could say the Billy Bat scene was, and this is the consequence, right? Of Tommy losing it. He feels he needs to justify himself, right?
Yeah.
A real Napoleon complex, you might say. And the Spider sequence really, really captured that. Like, this was probably one of the two best Joe Pesci scenes, which is crazy because he's great through the whole movie, but just as like the acting, like you could see him stewing, right? Like you could see Joe Pesci turning red.
Yeah, like he's just sitting there, arms at his sides, just brewing. Just something's gonna happen. He's not gonna let it slide.
And it just was like you knew, like, even if you hadn't watched the movie, you knew after Spider said that, you knew he was gonna die.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
you just, like, you know, there's no way in hell that Spider survives.
No. Not a chance.
And it's like, I think to me that, like, going, like, deep for a second, like, that kind of shows, like, the power that a guy like Tommy abuses, right? Because he really abuses the power that he has in this movie. Like, he doesn't take, like, he really takes for granted the fact that, oh, I'm holding life or death in my hands here. And
Right.
I'm just gonna end your life because you insulted me, right? Like, there's a point in the movie, I don't remember when, but Henry's like, you know, murder is a thing, right? Like, you have to have the threat of murder, otherwise you're gonna fall out of line. But that to me just was like kind of unnecessary. Like, Tommy definitely didn't need, for himself, he needed to kill Spider, but he didn't need to kill Spider. Spider, like, was just like kind of, he was an innocent bystander, you could say, but he was the closest thing that there was to it in the mob.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
the bottom of the totem pole. He's a gopher. He's getting your drinks.
Like, there's no reason to kill that guy if he's part of your own organization, right? Like, Billy Bats, while he was a made man and that ended up costing Tommy his life, you could understand, because it's like the
Make it fun of you, you know. Make it fun of you. He made a name for himself, and this guy's been in jail the whole time, and he's still gonna make fun of you.
Right, like, you earned you've been clawing for the respect, and now that you have it, this guy's gonna come back and try to put you back in your place of the totem pole where you were when Billy Bats went to prison.
Right.
You know, so that was, to me, it was like just the culmination of Tommy kind of losing it. And so I think we're going to go back to your sequential order, though, after that really, really deep conversation about Spider. Do you think we'd go this deep about Spider coming in?
No, the odds were not high. I think the over-under on Spider Talk was probably 30 seconds.
And I spent probably 5 minutes on it. That's what makes this movie interesting, though. Like, you could spend the Spider thing, you could talk about that long and not be, like, off base. And so we're going to transition now. What did you have next?
Karen versus Janice.
Oh.
So Janice is Henry's mistress. And one thing about Karen, she's not your typical mob wife, you know? We'll get into the characters later, I bet, but she's not your typical mob wife. Like, it was typical for, like, your stereotypical mob wife knows that there's going to be some sleeping around. There's going to be somebody on the side. And Karen, she suspects it, but she actually does something about it. She goes to Janice's apartment, rings the doorbell, you know, the buzzer. She's like, "Janice Rossi, you are nothing but a whore." And then, like, calls the superintendent. Is this the superintendent? I want you to know you have a whore living in your apartment.
She's mashing all the buttons so all the buzzers hear it. Like, she's not just mashing 2R, right? And I mean, I was watching this with my girlfriend last night, and we were talking about it, or I guess last night. I don't know when this is going to be released, but I watched this on May the 23rd. For those of you that could possibly be interested in when I watch Goodfellas, but we were watching, right, and she was, you know, doing all that, and I was like, my girlfriend's like, she probably knew he was cheating, but she probably didn't expect it to be full mistress level.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
oh, Henry bought her an apartment. He bought her all the furniture.
Mm-hmm.
Made her job easier. You know, just pretty much wife material right there.
Right. And I think what she said that was a really good point was, like, that's like taking the disrespect to a whole other level, right? Like, cheating is obviously bad, but with those guys, you kind of expect to be cheated on. But then, like, if you're Karen, someone who's not from this culture, right, to have this happen, yeah, that's got to be like one of the bigger slaps in the face. So shout out my girlfriend Ariana Rainwater. That was a really, really good point by you. Good take. And so, but I mean, that's like just funny too in and of itself. Just the superintendent part alone.
Yeah, that gave me an idea. When I'm going to go to Jacob Keith's apartment and buzz in his superintendent and say, "This is the superintendent. I want you to know you got a Knicks fan living here." Had to do it. Had to do it. Had to do it to him.
You had to.
No disrespect. No disrespect.
I think you meant all the disrespect. But that was... You completely meant disrespect. That's okay. That's okay.
I know myself.
Okay. Let's move on to your next scene.
The Tampa City Zoo. The Tampa City Zoo. Feed the guy to the lions. So they go, Jimmy and Henry go down to Tampa. Some guy owes them money or something. And they're like punching him. They're beating him up. He's not telling them anything. And so they're finally just like, fuck it. We're going to take him to the zoo. We're going to feed him to the lions. So they're holding him over to the lions exhibit. About ready to drop him in. He's like, all right, fine. They take him to this phone booth. He's on the phone. He's like, yeah, they mean business. He's just bleeding everywhere. Just about got fed to the king of the jungle. And then they get pinched for it because guy's sister turns out to be working for the FBI. So didn't work out for him. But that is a hell of a scene. Hell of a scene.
I thought my favorite part of that whole scene was when he was like, the guy's sister was an FBI typist, and then they revealed that he got arrested for it too.
Yeah. Even a brother.
Like, it's just the little details that make this movie. It's like even a brother got popped for it. And I think I know what scene you have next, and I'm gonna nominate this as one of the top 3 scenes in the whole movie, right? So go ahead and tell us your next scene, because I'm pretty sure I know where you're going with this. The
prison dinner?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep. So you can see, even in prison, these guys are top of the food chain. I mean, nothing's going to stop them. They're making a full course Italian meal. Henry's bringing in bread and lobsters and wine from who knows where. They've got this. They're not in a cell. That's for damn sure. They've got like this. You know, they've got mattresses, they've got a dinner table, they got a full kitchen. They're doing fine. They probably have a bathroom in there. You know, they're doing fine. So you kind of see all the power they have. Yeah, Paulie's slicing the garlic.
Oh, yeah, it was the garlic. You have to slice the garlic real thin or it'll...
With a razor.
So it'll melt. It'll melt in the... And I just was like, the amount of... So I wanted to talk about the food later, but I think now is a really good time to talk about the food. I ate pizza before I watched this movie, right? I ate 3 pieces of pizza. You know, it's pretty... I'm a big guy, right? I need pizza.
Everybody needs pizza.
I was really hungry after watching this movie. I was, like, ready to eat another meal.
That'll do it to you.
Just, like...
Italian cuisine, man. There's nothing like it. Nothing like it.
I was... You know, the way they made the sauce. I'm craving it right now. Today, I just went on a run. I went on a run about an hour before recording this, and I am very hungry now. So thinking about the scene is making me even more hungry. But just like the way that they were slicing the onions, you know, he's like, I got the beef, I got the prosciutto, I got the when he's bringing the food into the restaurant or into the prison. It's just hilarious, right? Like, and the way the food looks. If you even just go through the other scenes of the movie, the way that they film the food, the way Scorsese does it, the food just looks incredibly appetizing, especially at the end of the movie when you're just even more hungry after watching an hour and 50 minutes.
You're starving. Glad you brought up Scorsese, because I forgot to mention about Tommy's mom scene. The woman who plays Tommy's mom is actually Martin Scorsese's mom in real life. Fun fact.
Wow. That's a fun fact.
She's in a few of his movies. She's in Casino. She's in at least one other, I think. I think she's in Taxi Driver, but yeah, his mom in real life.
That's an incredibly fun fact, you know? I definitely needed that. And so I think now's a good time to transition. What did you have for your next scene?
Lufthansa heist.
Incredible.
It's the whole sequence. I mean, Henry's listening to the radio while he's in the shower, and then the news breaks on the radio, and he starts banging the wall. Jimmy! But yeah, this is Jimmy Conway's double nickel game, is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy Conway's 55-point game. I mean, things weren't really working out for him, and then you think he might be losing a step, and then he comes back, but this one hits you right in the gut. So, yeah.
Although I do have to say, we haven't brought up Maury yet, and I think there's a couple of really good Maury scenes.
Maury's wigs don't come off.
On the part where he's like, where he owes Jimmy money, I'm confused because they don't explain that. Like, how does he go from owing Jimmy money to Jimmy owing him money? But this is when he starts to get like real annoying.
Yeah,
like,
he's like one of those guys you just like, God, get out of here. Get out of here.
But, like, you're kind of like sympathetic to it, like knowing he's going to die, right? And that's going to be one of my favorite like scenes coming up. But like, you're just like, God, dude, just if you calm down a little, like if you calm down an iota, you would still be alive.
Yeah.
Like there's
maybe
no
if you didn't ask 10 times, you actually get your money and still be alive.
After, like before this, like immediately before this scene and every scene after, every time Maury appears in a scene, it's to ask about Jimmy's money.
Yep.
You don't see him, right? Except after the context of like, of where, you know, like the look gets in Jimmy's eyes, right? Then you kind of see him like amongst the people. But then even then you're like, it's in the context of knowing that Maury's going to get whacked. It's like, you know.
It's tough. It's tough. And Henry knew Maury was going to get hit, but he just didn't know when, because when they're at the table playing cards, Jimmy calls it off, but then that same night kills him. Maury's wife comes to Henry's house. In 27 years, he's never come home. He's never stayed out all night without calling. And then, Henry can probably deduce what happened to the man, but
I mean, the scene where they showed Maury and his wife in when the kids discover him, and I think we're gonna talk about this, but I want to talk about it myself. The sequence where they show Jimmy getting paranoid and just
I had it down as Jimmy cleaning house.
Like just getting paranoid because he kills Frankie, he kills, I don't remember the names of the other two guys, but everybody except Tommy and Henry are alive, or excuse me, everybody except Henry and Tommy are dead by the time the movie's almost over, right? From the Lufthansa heist, like because Jimmy was starting to get paranoid. He was paranoid the first night when I thought that sequence was great too, when they showed up to the restaurant and he was like, some of their wives were wearing big fur coats. Mm-hmm. They bought a car. He's like, it's under my mother-in-law's name. Like, I told you not to spend the money.
Jimmy, it's under my mother's name. It's a wedding present. It's fine. What did I tell you?
That to me was Jimmy at his like scariest, right? Because like you knew.
He's pissed. And you know what? If I was a mob guy, I'd be pissed too. Just pulled off this massive heist, and now you go and buy a new Cadillac, buy a new fur coat? I don't think so.
I mean, to be fair, it was a hell of a coat.
It was a hell of a coat. It was probably soft as hell, probably nice little blanket at times. But
well, and do you notice what Henry does immediately after Jimmy gives him the money?
What? I don't.
He goes and buys the most. He's like,
yeah. He buys the most expensive Christmas tree.
I got the most expensive Christmas tree I could find. Like, he just totally discarded Jimmy's advice.
Just as guilty.
And so, okay, what did you have after Lufthansa?
So I did have the whole Jimmy cleaning house, killing everybody. With the Eric Clapton playing alongside it. Just great.
Sunshine of Your Love.
Great music choice.
I can't hear that song now. Like, because I used to play Guitar Hero, right? So I know that song. I know the...
Yeah. And then you get Layla with it. Just great. Great music in this whole movie.
It's like... That was as soon as that track starts playing and you look into Robert De Niro's eyes, like you can see him, like that was like his version of Spider, right? Like that was, you just knew as soon as you looked into his eyes, as soon as that song starts playing,
Bodies are
Maury's-
hitting the floor.
like Maury is just like, that to me is probably, there's so many great music choices in this song. Top 2 is either that song. It's either that song or Somebody Kiss Me.
Yeah.
Or When You Kiss Me. That's the name of the song. When You Kissed Me, when they in the Copacabana scene. Those are the only 2 choices that I would accept at the top. Maybe Gimme Shelter, but he plays Gimme Shelter in like every movie. Like, I think
A lot of stones in all his movies.
But that was just like an incredible sequence, right? And then when Tommy finally strangles it, or does he strangle him or does he stab him? I don't remember off the top of my head.
Looked like an ice pick to the back of the head.
And he's like,
what I could ice pick or screwdriver, one or the other.
And he's like, finally, you wouldn't shut the fuck up.
But at the same time, I kind of get where Maury's coming from with Lufthansa. I mean, yeah, he's always begging for his money, but like Lufthansa, you're getting a shitload of money for that heist, and he did organize it, so I would want my money too.
I thought
should have been the first one to get his money if you think about it.
Frankie has an incredible sequence of Frankie Carbone has an incredible sequence of just hilarious lines. Starting with this one, he's like, where he doesn't start the car, and Tommy's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" He's like, "I thought we were gonna chop it up here." He's like, "We're not chopping it up here. We're going chopping it up at," I don't remember what the name of the place was. And then he's like, and then he starts the car. He's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" He's like, "I'm letting the car get warm." Letting the car get warm? Get the fuck out of here.
Just like, yeah, like you said, little things like that, really little comedic things make the movie what it is. Just a classic.
I think coming out of it, Frankie Carbone, one of my favorite characters. Because did this
hair, man. The hair.
Did this all happen before or after Stacks? Or did you have Stacks coming up?
Didn't have Stacks on my list. I didn't have that.
There was a great line when they were in Stacks, right? Like when they were in Stacks' place, where Tommy tells him to go make some coffee. Tommy whacks Stacks. And then and then Frankie's just holding a coffee pot. He's like, Tommy's like, make the coffee to go. And then he doesn't. And then Frankie walks out the door with the coffee. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Leave that here. And it
was a joke. Leave it.
Frankie Carbone, if he was a baseball player, he draws a lot of walks. You know, it's like the little subtle things where he just makes you laugh like every single time. Rest in peace, Frankie Carbone, the only character I cared about from Goodfellas. I said it.
Wow.
I'm obviously joking, but Frankie Carbone, I should have had a higher usage rate. A little bit.
Very low usage rate. Very underrated.
Not like, you know, he shouldn't be shooting as much as like Harden or anything, but like, you know, give him like an Ariza thing, you know, if he's open, let him shoot it.
Some Eric Gordon action.
Right.
You know?
Fun fact, did you know that he and De Niro are the only 2 people to have appeared in The Godfather from this movie?
Did not know that. I knew De Niro, didn't know Frankie.
He was Jenko. He was young Jenko in Godfather 2.
Huh. How about that?
I knew I recognized him. And you know, it's funny because you know what the actor's name is?
I don't.
Frank Severo. So they didn't do much effort trying to change his name.
No, they didn't. Frank Carbone. What a name, Carbone.
I mean, just an incredible name. It just was phenomenal. And so what did you have next in your scenes?
I also had another parallel with Jimmy cleaning house. It was
okay.
The Rogue One Darth Vader scene. Just killing everybody.
Interesting.
Just flexing, full flex, all the power. Just killing them all.
Only difference is that Jimmy has what he wants and Vader doesn't come up with what he wants.
This is true.
Only difference.
Next, I had Tommy's death and some symbolism. Don't know if you caught it. They walk in there. He sees the swordfish on the wall, sleeping with the fishes.
Oh,
little Godfather callback.
I did not. Yeah. That's a great call.
I think he walked in there. saw the fish on the wall and was like, oh, fuck. And you see it, he's like, oh, no. It just gets domed. Also, Tootie. What happened to Tootie? Big guy in this movie at the beginning. Then we just don't see him again. He was there, though.
I mean, that part was like, that was like some Killer Henry narration there, where he was like, you know, they shot him so bad they couldn't even do an open casket funeral.
Yeah.
I mean, the special effects there were kind of bad, but you know, it was still the 90s. You were doing the best with what you had. But
basically the 80s.
Going visually, yeah, practically it was the 80s because it came out in 90. Going with like just off this visuals alone, like he just kind of flops, like he looks like he kind of does a belly flop with like the, you know, whatever they use for the blood, right? Because, you know, they have the blood packets they use for the blood. It looks like they kind of blurred that out at first and he just landed on one of those.
That's my one gripe with this movie is that the blood came out too fast. It came out too fast. My only gripe with Goodfellas is that the blood came out of Tommy's head too fast.
That's that's your only gripe. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And so what did you have for the next scene?
Well, Sunday, May 11th, 1980. The whole day. The whole day. I think could be the best. This could be the best sequence in the whole movie. Just
has to be.
You know, he's got a busy day, gets up early. He's got to sell some silencers or some guns or whatever.
He has to sell the guns to Jimmy because Jimmy needed some guns for the silencers, right?
Yeah. And then he's got to make dinner and he's got to take care of his cocaine thing. Just a lot going on. He's got to take the babysitter to the airport. A lot going on. Gets in the doctor. We see a couple cameos here. We see Bo Dietl, who's the Fed that takes him down. Don't you move, motherfucker. I'll blow your brains out. Classic Bo Dietl line. And then we see Clay Davis from The Wire. Senator Clay Davis. Also on the... he's a doctor now.
Yeah, apparently. Well, he was a doctor before he was a Baltimore city representative. You know, very esteemed career for Clay.
I must say.
I'm surprised we didn't hear a good old shit from him.
Shit. Henry, sit down on the table here.
Shit, partner. I love Clay Davis. Different podcast though. I could talk. I mean, Clay Davis, just the way he emoted the shits.
Just that voice, man.
How did The Wire not get more Emmys? Didn't get any
Emmys.
And the only ones they got nominated for were for writing, which I mean was exceptional. But I mean, to not give Stringer Bell, I hate Stringer Bell. Not to give him an Emmy, disgraceful.
Stringer Bell, Dominic West. It's kind of a tragedy.
The guy who played Bunk.
Yeah, Wendell Pierce.
I'm not gonna get on the Wire rabbit hole right now. I refuse. But it was. I had to look it up.
Another time.
It was like just really funny seeing Clay Davis in there. But that whole sequence, just like the way that they shoot the helicopter following him, right? Like, because the way that the camera's positioned, it looks like you're looking out of a rearview mirror, right? Or it looks like you're, like they do a really good job of capturing the essence of feeling paranoid. That whole sequence makes you feel paranoid for Henry, and you shouldn't be rooting for Henry Hill, by the way, right? Like that's something that should be made itself exceptionally clear. But he's
a philanderer. He's a drug addict. He's got his babysitter in on the drug trade. I mean, come on.
Well, and what does him in is this new mistress, not Janice Rossi, who is a whore living in 2R, but
what was her name? Sandy.
Sandy. Yeah. We got the new mistress coming in, and I thought it was like he bought her a new dishwasher, and then the colander is what did him in.
Yeah.
Imagine getting did in by a colander.
The irony.
Like, it just bought you. Like the look on his face when they pulled out the colander, he knew he was done.
Oh, he knew he was fucked.
And so I think one of the next scene has to be did you have Jimmy going to talk to Polly?
I did not have that one.
I didn't have that one either, but just thinking about it, it's such a great scene. Just the look of disgust in Polly's face.
Because he told him, get off the drugs. Told him a long time ago. And he just didn't do it. Pretty, like he said, lied to his face.
And he's like, $3,000, and he goes back to his house, finds out that Karen flushed the drugs down the toilet.
That was the scene I had next. I flushed it.
I realized we didn't touch a scene that I thought we maybe would have touched on, but we'll go back to that after you finish your sequential order. So go ahead and talk about that scene.
Yeah, so like you said, Henry comes back to the house just because like he said, it was worth $60,000, all that cocaine. They're going to use that to skip town, get away from the danger. And we see Karen flushed it when the feds were knocking the door down. And you just see the defeat in Henry's face because he knows that was literally his last hope to get out of it alive or without having to get arrested. So, and then they have it's like their last embrace as a couple. And it's just like pure despair. It's just like great. Culmination of everything they've been through, really.
Great acting there by Lorraine Bracco and by Ray Liotta.
Oh, yeah.
It was an incredible, you could feel like they're on their last hopes. And then I'm guessing the scene that you have next is when Karen goes to visit Jimmy.
Yeah, that was the last scene I had. Karen walking down the street, clearly gonna die if she keeps walking. You can see it. Jimmy's looking around, making sure nobody's around. She's clearly gonna get hit, and she'd been in it long enough. She knew to get out of there. So, just really an eerie scene, and kind of sad.
Since this is ostensibly a basketball podcast, I'll bring a basketball analogy in here. Great court awareness by her. Seeing the trap coming.
Oh yeah. She read the defense. She read the defense very well.
Getting into getting away from the open shooter, if you want to make a pun. But
yeah. Very good.
That was good. It was that scene just though, you watch it and you're like, because this is
She got out of the double team. She got out of the double team very well. Dribbled out of it.
They kind of aged up De Niro, right? So at this point in the movie, De Niro's kind of looking like a grandpa.
He's in his 50s.
Right, the hair's white, he's wearing the big old glasses. And it's ostensibly this guy should be looking like a real comforting guy, and then watching him try to wave you in the store, when you see the guys in the store, I mean, Karen was really lucky that that her car was parked right there.
Oh yeah.
It was parked literally right in front of that store. And I guess if I had a question, right, why wouldn't Jamie just back Karen herself?
I don't know. Maybe too personal for him. Maybe he couldn't do it, or maybe we could be reading this wrong and she wasn't going to get hit. I think she was clearly going to get killed, but
I think so too.
Other people might not think so.
I don't think that there was any way that she came out of that alive.
Yeah.
There just was absolutely no way. Because, the way he's waving her in there, and, those guys weren't small, right? You don't have, little guys. Unless, Joe Pesci wasn't even, a hitman. He just was a guy who hit a lot of people.
Yeah.
Right? You usually reserve your bigger guys, your more intimidating guys. And so I think we're reading this 100% correct, personally. I think that she was going to die if she went in that store. And because that would have been their way to get at Jimmy, to try to get him to not talk.
Right.
But since she was alive, and since she's, being honest and forthcoming about what happened to her, I don't think Henry realized he had any other choice.
Yeah, he read the writing on the wall for sure. Didn't have any other place to go. He already went to Polly. Tommy's dead. Jimmy's trying to kill his wife. He's nowhere to go.
And so I want to get back to the scenes that I wanted to highlight, because you highlighted most of mine. But how do we feel about Henry just getting up in the middle of testifying and walking just in the middle of the courtroom, clearly looking into the camera at the end. I mean, the movie's great, but come on now.
I didn't mind it. It was a nice fourth wall break. I liked it.
I mean, I guess, that's him being the narration Henry, but I mean, it's kind of like the movie's realistic for the most part, and then you have that breaking the fourth wall. I personally just was kind of caught it myself, but you feel differently. So I had a couple scenes, right?
Okay.
We kind of touched on it earlier with the Karen going to Janice Rossi's place, calling her a whore.
Yep.
But when she climbs on top of Henry and is holding the gun at him, that is such a terrifying scene. And this is one of those scenes where you're kind of on Henry's side, weirdly.
Yeah, you are.
Because you're I don't want Henry to get whacked so soon.
Yeah.
And just the way that they both play it, right? This is one of Lorraine Bracco's first major acting roles. I think she's only had 2 for the most part. But this is one of her first major acting roles, and the look on her face, her face is all screwed up in rage. She was killing the acting in the Rossi scene, but then in this one, she's just I'm gonna shoot you, and then Henry's just Karen, in a real soft voice,
totally
Karen.
calm.
And then once he gets her disarmed, he turns into a yelling maniac, right? I think that's something that Liotta did well this whole movie, right? Is he knew when to flip the switch, when to go from being really calm to just bouncing off the walls with anger. And as soon as he gets her disarmed and gets the gun back, he reverses it on her. And whatever goodwill you felt for Henry, you lost in that minute as soon as he got the gun back. It's how does that feel? I come home to not be stressed. Or he's I have people trying to whack me all day, every day, and I gotta come home and get a gun fucking pointed at me. Incredible scene by Liotta and Lorraine Bracco. Hello, just wanted to thank you again for listening. I really want to shout out Zach Griffith. That was a really fun pod, and that was only part 1. Imagine what could be in part 2. And I wanted to shout out his podcast, The Circle City Chat Room, also on the Running Hook Podcast Network. I want to shout out The Running Hook. I had Justin Powell on to discuss IUPUI women's basketball. I had JD Hall on to discuss Game 7 of the 2019 Eastern Conference Finals between the 76ers and the Raptors. I think I said finals, I meant semifinals. And I also have an episode of Linsanity coming out that's also 2 parts that discusses the Southeast Division, also with Zach Griffith. Really Zach heavy week on The Running Hook. I just want to thank you for listening.